On July 3rd, 2012, as night fell, the city of Shantou gradually sank into silence. However, in a small guest house on the outskirts, a chilling discovery sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. While cleaning the third-floor hallway, the innkeeper, Wang Xiaoyan, unexpectedly noticed strange bloodstains on the floor. Curiosity led her to room 306, where a guest had just checked out late at night. What she found inside was horrifying: a travel bag abandoned in the bathroom, containing a dismembered part of a woman's body. The case quickly caught the attention of the police and the public. Clues about the mysterious man who rented the room, along with the traces left behind in room 306, led to an intense investigation. But what was even more terrifying was the possibility that this was not the only victim. Who was the perpetrator? What was the true motive behind this gruesome crime? And how did the police uncover the truth behind one of China's most brutal murderers? Stay tuned until the end of the video as we uncover the full story and the chilling details behind today's case. Terrifying discovery in room 306. Shortly after 10 p.m. on July 3rd, 2012, the streets of Shantou's Longhu district had grown quiet, with only a few scattered street vendors' familiar nighttime calls echoing in the air. Most households had locked their doors, though a handful of businesses remained open late into the night. Among them, the blinking red neon lights of Chenglong Guesthouse stood out on the edge of the city, in a transitional area between urban hustle and rural stillness. It was a place that blended the fast pace of city life with the slower rhythm of the countryside, neither truly chaotic nor completely peaceful. At that moment, on the third-floor staircase of the Chenglong Guesthouse, Wang Xiaoyan, the owner, was diligently cleaning away footprints left by guests. As she busied herself with her chores, she suddenly noticed a few reddish stains on the floor. They looked like blood. Thinking she was just seeing things due to drowsiness, she rubbed her eyes and took another careful look. Her heart skipped a beat as she realized that it really was blood. Panic set in as she stood frozen, trying to figure out where it had come from. Then, she remembered something. Just 2 minutes earlier, a guest had hurriedly left, dragging a suitcase behind him. He had moved suspiciously fast, and in that short time, he was the only person who had passed through. Could these bloodstains be connected to that guest? Driven by curiosity, she rushed after him to ask. When confronted, the guest appeared startled, his eyes betraying a hint of panic. He hurriedly explained that he had accidentally cut his hand, causing the bloodstains, and that he had been in such a rush that he didn't have time to clean up. Before Wang Xiaoyan could press further, the man quickly started his motorcycle and disappeared into the night. His urgency and nervous demeanor only deepened her suspicion. Immediately, she ran to ask her husband which room the man had stayed in. He told her, room 306. Thinking about the suitcase the guest had taken with him, Wang Xiaoyan couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her gut. What was inside it? Why had he left in such a hurry in the middle of the night? With growing apprehension, she decided to check room 306. The room was a small single unit, only about 15 square meters. As soon as she stepped inside, she was hit by an overpowering smell of bleach. Everything in the room appeared unnaturally tidy, the bed neatly made, every item precisely in its place. Most guests, when leaving, would at least leave behind some mess, or at best, a hastily straightened room. But this level of cleanliness felt deliberate. Her unease deepened as she inspected further. Near the bathroom door, she spotted a large travel bag, partially unzipped. A terrible curiosity gripped her, urging her to look inside. As she opened the bag and peered in, she screamed in horror. Her scream echoed through the guest house, reaching the ground floor, where her husband immediately rushed upstairs. When he arrived at room 306, he found his wife collapsed in the bathroom, clutching her head, trembling from head to toe. Approaching cautiously, he looked inside the travel bag and was met with a nightmarish sight. A human head, with long black hair, lay face down inside the bag, paralyzed by shock and terror. Neither of them dared to touch the bag. Without wasting another second, They grabbed the phone and called the police. Crime scene and initial assessments. After receiving the report, the police quickly arrived at the scene and cordoned off the area for investigation. By this time, it was already past midnight, yet room 306 of Qinglong Guesthouse was unusually crowded. Curious bystanders, including other guests and local night workers, gathered outside upon seeing multiple police vehicles parked in front of the guesthouse. Due to the dim lighting in the bathroom, investigators used flashlights to carefully examine the scene. In the flickering light, an officer slowly turned over the severed head inside the travel bag. As the pale face of a woman came into view, everyone at the scene was stunned into silence. Her lips were bluish-purple, her eyes not fully closed, and blood was still seeping from the cut on her neck, soaking almost the entire bag. Inside the bag, the police also discovered additional body parts, thighs, both arms, and lower legs, all crudely dismembered. The gruesome sight sent shivers down the spines of everyone present, including the seasoned officers. A closer inspection of the bathroom revealed traces of blood in the corners of the walls and between the tiles. Forensic analysis confirmed that the blood belonged to the victim. Based on the evidence, police determined that the bathroom was the primary crime scene. The forensic team estimated that the victim was a woman between 25 and 30 years old, approximately 1.6 meters tall, with long black hair. Judging from the blood condition, she had been dead for less than 24 hours. Around her neck, a red cord was found, suggesting that strangulation was the probable cause of death. Expanding the search, investigators found a faint fingerprint on the mattress in the room, belonging to an adult male. However, it was too smudged to be clearly analyzed or matched. No identification documents or personal belongings were found in the room to help determine the victim's identity. What stood out was how meticulously clean the room was, a sign that the killer had an unusually composed mindset, showing no signs of panic after committing the crime. From the collected evidence, authorities speculated that the perpetrator could be someone with a medical or surgical background, or possibly a seasoned serial killer familiar with dismemberment techniques. Recognizing the gravity of the case, the police immediately formed a specialized investigation team. Their first line of inquiry focused on the last guest to rent room 306. The investigation begins, identifying the victim. According to the guesthouse owner, the person who rented the room was Wang, 30 years old, approximately 1.7 meters tall, and balding. After reviewing security camera footage, police did not find any images of a woman entering or leaving room 306. This raised a crucial question. When did the victim arrive in the room? Further investigation revealed that the guesthouse had experienced a power outage from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. that day, which had disabled the surveillance cameras. It was highly likely that the victim had entered during this window. Expanding their search, investigators examined security cameras in the surrounding area. Eventually, they found footage of a bald man, confirmed to be Wang, standing outside the guesthouse alongside a young woman with long hair, wearing a red dress. At approximately 4 p.m., the man was seen leaving the guesthouse while talking on the phone. At an intersection, he met the woman in the red dress. The two appeared comfortable and familiar with each other, engaged in a light-hearted conversation. After their discussion, they both entered the guesthouse together. However, the woman in the red dress was never seen leaving. A guest staying in room 307, next to room 306, provided a crucial lead. He recalled hearing a woman scream from the adjacent room during that time. However, he dismissed it as a startled reaction to a rat or insect and did not think it was anything serious. During their search, police found a black plastic bag containing cheap cosmetics on the bed in room 306. They suspected that it belonged to the woman in the red dress. Based on the low-cost items inside, police deduced that the victim likely came from a lower-income background, possibly a factory worker. In the trash bin, investigators also discovered a half-eaten pack of dried plums, a common snack among women. The The packaging had a quality control stamp from Zhongshan City's food department, indicating that the victim may have traveled from Zhongshan before arriving in Shantou. By 5 p.m., once power was restored and the guesthouse's cameras were back online, footage only captured Zhuo Guabin leaving room 306. At this time, he was wearing a white shirt and carrying a black bag. With this information, police officially designated Zhuo Guabin as the prime suspect, while confirming that the woman in the red dress was the likely victim. Following the direction from which the woman had arrived earlier that day, police traced her movements backward and discovered that she had taken a taxi to the guest house. When investigators contacted the taxi driver, they learned that the woman in the red dress had traveled from Zhongshan. She had first taken a long-distance bus to Shantou and then hired a taxi to reach Qinglong guest house. With this crucial lead, Shantou police immediately coordinated with authorities in Zhongshan to expand the investigation. Through cooperation with Zhongshan law enforcement, they reviewed bus station records and eventually identified a woman who had purchased a ticket while wearing a red dress. Upon further examination, the victim was identified as Wang Xiaoyan, 31 years old. Police quickly contacted her family, including her husband, Song Wei. Song Wei informed the police that he had not been able to contact his wife for several days. Her phone had been turned off the entire time. Growing worried, he and his family searched for her but found no leads. With Song Wei's cooperation, police collected DNA samples from her family to compare with the remains found in room 306. The results confirmed the horrifying truth. The dismembered body belonged to Wang Xiaoyan, 31 years old, originally from Shaanxi province. Initial clues from the victims' relationships. According to Song Wei, he and Wang Xiaoyan had been married for 15 years and had 2 children. Song worked as a factory worker in Zhongshan City, while his wife worked at a local hair salon and massage parlor. By all accounts, Wang Xiaoyan was a kind and quiet woman with no known conflicts or enemies. Her social circle was simple, consisting of only a few close friends from middle school, whom she occasionally met up with. Every day after work, Wang Xiaoyan would walk home and rarely traveled far. She was not comfortable with long-distance trips, and whenever she needed to go somewhere, she would typically ask her husband or relatives to accompany her rather than traveling alone. This was why Song Wei was deeply puzzled about why his wife had gone to Shantou without telling him. During questioning, Song Wei firmly stated that neither he nor Wang Xiaoyan had any relatives or acquaintances in Shantou. He had also never heard his wife mention having friends there. This raised a critical question. Why did Wang Xiaoyan travel to Shantou to meet Zhuo Guabin? Was there a secret relationship between them? To clarify the situation, the police visited Wang Xiaoyan's workplace to speak with her colleagues. Contrary to Song Wei's account, one of her co-workers, Chen, revealed that Wang Xiaoyan did not have a happy marriage. According to Chen, Wang Xiaoyan and her husband frequently argued over trivial matters. Song Wei had a tendency to overreact, which made Wang Xiaoyan increasingly frustrated with their relationship. More notably, Song Wei was emotionally distant. There were nights when Wang Xiaoyan didn't come home, yet her husband never called to check on her or visited her workplace. In fact, the couple had already separated for some time. Chen also disclosed that Wang Xiaoyan had been chatting online with a man she met on social media. This man was described as handsome, wealthy, and the owner of a building materials store in Shantou. After a month of flirtatious conversations, he had invited Wang Xiaoyan to visit him in Shantou. Excited by the opportunity, she eagerly agreed. Police confirmed that on July 3, 2012, Wang Xiaoyan dressed up carefully and seemed excited about meeting this man. However, when investigators showed Chen a photo of Zhuo Guabin, she immediately stated that he was not the man Wang Xiaoyan had described. Instead, Chen recalled that the man Wang Xiaoyan planned to meet was young, good-looking, and did not resemble Zhuo Guabin at all, who was balding and significantly older. With these conflicting details, police decided to expand their investigation, searching for both Zhuo Guabin and the unidentified man Wang Xiaoyan had met online. The case took an even darker turn when news about the mutilated body in room 306 at Qinglong Guesthouse spread through the media. Soon after, police in Jieyang City contacted the Shantou police, informing them of a similar unsolved murder that had occurred in their jurisdiction. In that case, the victim was a woman whose body had also been dismembered, with her head missing. To this day, the perpetrator had never been caught. The striking similarities between the two cases, brutal killings, body dismemberment, and a possible connection to Shantou, led authorities to suspect that the crimes could have been committed by the same killer. However, the Jieyang case had far fewer clues compared to the Shantou investigation. Because of this, law enforcement from both cities decided to form a joint task force to collaborate and solve the case. Camera footage, the killer exposed. Following the clues from room 306, police turned their attention to Wang Xiaoyan's phone records. They discovered that she had frequently called an unsaved number, and on the afternoon of July 3rd, she had a particularly long conversation with this contact. This timing coincided exactly with the moment security cameras captured Zhu Guabin leaving the guest house while talking on the phone. The investigators suspected that the number belonged to Zhu Guabin, but when they traced it, they found that it was not registered under a real name, making it nearly impossible to track the owner. Expanding their search, police tried to find any records of someone named Zhu Guabin. Despite extensive efforts, they uncovered nothing, no official documents, no addresses, and no connections to anyone in the area. Even after questioning more than 10 local residents, no one had ever heard of that name. The case seemed to be stalling, with the suspect appearing to have vanished into thin air. Just when the investigation seemed to reach a dead end, a breakthrough came on July 7th. A local resident contacted the authorities, claiming to have seen a man resembling Zhu Guabin in a village on the outskirts of Jieyang City. This man, known in the area by the nickname Shantou, was actually Zheng Yangfu, a 42-year-old from Guizhou province. He had been living in a rented house in Jieyang's economic development zone. Zheng Yangfu had once worked at a printing factory but had lost his job due to his careless and irresponsible behavior. By the time police tracked him down, he had been working as a freelance driver, earning a meager living. When officers arrived to question him, he seemed genuinely shocked and confused, unable to comprehend why he was being arrested. As soon as they mentioned that he was linked to a murder in Shantou, he firmly denied any involvement. He insisted that he had never been to the city, nor did he have any connection to a homicide case. But when the police showed him the security footage from Qinglong Guesthouse, his expression subtly changed. Though he continued to deny everything, he reluctantly agreed to accompany the officers for questioning at the police station. At the station, Zheng Yangfu maintained his innocence, claiming that the man in the video was simply someone who looked like him. He went on to argue that the suspect in the footage was too well dressed, stating that he could never afford such expensive clothing, implying that it was impossible for him to be the man in the video. Determined to confirm his identity beyond any doubt, the investigators brought in Wang Xiaoyan, the guest house owner, for a direct confrontation. The moment she laid eyes on him, she immediately recognized him. His distinctive bald head had left a strong impression on her, and there was no hesitation in her identification. With this confirmation, police conducted the final test. They compared his fingerprints with the blood-stained print found on the mattress in room 306. The result was undeniable, a perfect match. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Zheng Yangfu finally broke down. He confessed to killing Wang Xiaoyan. A life of poverty and a web of deception. Zheng Yangfu admitted that he had used the fake identity of Zhu Guabin to approach Wang Xiaoyan and several other women to avoid being caught. He even went as far as forging identification documents. Initially, his goal was simple. He wanted to scam women for money and affection. However, as he interacted with more victims, he began to develop a warped perspective. He convinced himself that these women were immoral, that despite having husbands, they still sought relationships outside their marriages. Over time, This delusion turned into justification for his crimes. He claimed that his actions were meant to teach unfaithful women a lesson, believing that money was not the most important thing in life and that true emotions were what truly mattered. In his own mind, he was not a criminal but an agent of justice. He saw himself as someone delivering punishment, convinced that by killing these women, he was somehow helping society. His twisted perception of reality was likely shaped by his past experiences. Investigations into his background revealed that he had once been married to a woman named Wang Yi, who was 5 years younger than him. They had lived what seemed to be a happy life in their hometown in Guizhou. Wang Yi was a gentle and attractive woman, admired by many men in the village. Yet she chose Zhang Yangfu over wealthier suitors, believing in love over material comfort. Zhang Yangfu had grown up in a poor household with 4 siblings in a remote mountainous village. Because of his family's financial struggles, he had to drop out of school early and start working. His fateful encounter with Wang Yi happened at a local market, where he was working as a porter. One day, as he carried heavy loads for customers, he noticed a thief running away with Wang Yi's belongings. Without a second thought, he dropped everything and chased after the thief. His act of bravery impressed Wang Yi, and from that moment on, she took an interest in him. Despite his difficult financial situation, she chose to marry him, thinking that love would be enough to sustain them. However, reality soon shattered their romantic ideals. As time passed, Wang Yi grew tired of their impoverished life. She longed for something better and ultimately fell for an older, wealthier man. One day, without warning, she packed her bags and left, abandoning Zhang Yangfu and their child. Left alone, he had no choice but to leave his child in the care of his elderly parents while he traveled for work, hoping to earn enough to rebuild his life. During this period, he met another woman, Amei. Unlike Wang Yi, Amei was not swept away by love alone. Though she liked Zhang Yangfu, when he proposed marriage, she made it clear that she would only accept if he could provide financial stability. Her condition was simple. If he wanted to marry her, he had to build a house. This demand put him in an impossible situation. He was already struggling to pay for basic living expenses, let alone afford a home. No matter how many times he tried to explain his situation, Amei refused to change her stance. She made it clear that love was not enough. Without financial security, there would be no marriage. The rejection shattered him. He had already lost Wang Yi to a wealthier man. And now, Amei was also choosing money over love. With each failed relationship, his resentment toward women deepened. Feeling betrayed by the real world, he turned to social media in search of companionship. But even in the digital space, he found that women were highly selective, uninterested in men without financial success. This realization fueled his growing bitterness. If women only cared about status and money, he would give them what they wanted, at least on the surface. He carefully crafted a new identity, portraying himself as a successful businessman, wealthy and independent. The deception worked. Suddenly, women who once ignored him were now eager to talk to him, flirt with him, and even agree to meet him. But for Zhang Yangfu, it was never about love anymore. His satisfaction came not from romance, but from manipulation. He enjoyed luring these women in, making them believe in the fantasy, and then revealing the truth, watching their reactions when they realized they had been deceived. For him, it was no longer just a game. It was a way to regain control, a way to prove that he was the one who had the final say. The Fateful Night, unveiling the victim's complex life. Among the many women Zhang Yangfu met online, one of them was Wang Xiaoyan. On the surface, she appeared to be a gentle and well-mannered woman, but beneath that facade lay ambitions and desires she kept hidden. Though married, Wang Xiaoyan was dissatisfied with her husband's meager income and grew to resent him. She worked at an underground massage parlor, where she not only earned extra money but also expanded her extramarital relationships. At her workplace, Wang Xiaoyan frequently interacted with young men. Her husband, Song Wei, eventually discovered her affairs and, despite multiple warnings, she refused to change. Frustrated by his wife's continuous infidelity, He filed for divorce and awaited the court hearing. During this period, they still lived under the same roof but completely avoided each other. Wang Xiaoyan often returned home late and sometimes even stayed overnight at work, neglecting her children, who were left in the care of her husband and in-laws. One evening, while browsing social media, she came across Zheng Yangfu's profile. He presented himself as a wealthy, successful businessman, and his image immediately caught her attention. Intrigued, she sent him a friend request, and the two began chatting. Over time, their relationship became more intimate. However, due to the distance between them and her lack of independent mobility, they had never met in person. On July 3rd, Zheng Yangfu invited Wang Xiaoyan to meet at Chenglong Guesthouse in Longhu District. Shantou, he enticed her with promises of an expensive gift, knowing she believed he was a wealthy businessman. Excited by the prospect of meeting someone who could change her life, Wang Xiaoyan eagerly agreed. She even shared her excitement with her colleague, Chen, unable to hide her enthusiasm, believing she had struck an incredible stroke of luck. According to Zheng Yangfu's confession, Wang Xiaoyan took a long-distance bus from Zhongshan to Shantou and then hired a motorcycle taxi to reach the guest house. When they met for the first time, they chatted happily, appearing completely at ease with one another. At that moment, the guest house was experiencing a power outage, preventing the security cameras from recording their entrance into room 306. Once inside, they sat on the bed and talked. Wang Xiaoyan even offered him dried plums she had bought from Zhongshan. After some time, they became intimate. Initially, Zheng Yangfu's plan was only to dominate Wang Xiaoyan by force and teach her a lesson. However, when she screamed loudly, he panicked, covered her mouth, and tied her to the bed, fearing that if he let her go, she would report him to the police. He made a chilling decision. He would kill her. Zheng Yangfu retrieved a red cord from his suitcase and strangled Wang Xiaoyan until she suffocated. Since her mouth was covered, she was unable to cry for help. Once he was certain that she was dead, he took out a knife hidden in his suitcase and began dismembering the body. He severed her head, arms, legs, and thighs, placing some parts into his suitcase and others into black plastic bags to dispose of later. The entire process, murder and body dismemberment, was executed swiftly. After completing the crime, he meticulously cleaned the room to erase all traces of his presence. However, as he was about to leave, the guest house owner, Wang Xiaoyan, became suspicious of his behavior. Fearing he had drawn too much attention, Zheng Yangfu fled hastily on his motorcycle, abandoning the suitcase containing the victim's severed head in the bathroom. The Devil Unmasked, exposing more crimes. As investigators dug deeper into Zheng Yangfu's past, they became increasingly convinced that this was not his first crime. The methodical nature of his actions, the lack of hesitation in committing murder, and the ease with which he disposed of evidence suggested a pattern of violence. Police suspected that he might be responsible for multiple rapes and killings, particularly the case of the decapitated woman found in Jieyang City, an unsolved murder that bore striking similarities to the Shantou case. To solidify their suspicions, authorities searched his rented home in Jieyang. What they discovered only added to the chilling nature of his crimes. Among his possessions were a laptop, 2 mobile phones, 2 women's watches, and multiple sets of women's clothing in different sizes. Investigators then examined his social media accounts and were shocked to find that he had been using 8 different online profiles, engaging in conversations with over 3,000 women. Many of these exchanges revealed that several women had agreed to meet him, suggesting that had he not been apprehended, the number of victims could have escalated dramatically. After his arrest was made public, 3 women came forward, revealing that they had been raped and robbed by Zheng Yangfu. However, due to fear of retaliation and social stigma, they had never reported the crimes. Their testimonies reinforced the theory that Zheng Yangfu had been committing violent acts long before Wang Xiaoyan's murder. During the course of their investigation, police also uncovered a missing persons case linked to Zheng Yangfu. On June 12, 2012, a young woman named Huang Feng had vanished without a trace in Jiangmen, Guangdong Province. Before her disappearance, she had informed friends that she was traveling to Shantou for a promising job opportunity, which had been introduced to her by an acquaintance. At first, Zheng Yangfu denied any involvement in her disappearance. However, under intense questioning, he finally confessed to her murder. He admitted that he had lured Huang Feng to Shantou with a fake job offer, initially intending only to rob and assault her. However, upon meeting her in person, he had a sudden change of heart. He found her appearance and demeanor appealing and decided to reveal his true identity, hoping she would still accept him. But when Huang Feng realized she had been deceived, she lashed out in anger, sparking a heated argument. In a fit of rage, Zheng Yangfu strangled her to death, then dismembered her body and disposed of the remains in Jieyang. The shocking confessions did not end there. As police continued their investigation, they traveled to his hometown in Guizhou Province to gather more background information. His family lived in extreme poverty in a remote mountainous area. His elderly parents had worked tirelessly to provide for their 4 children, always dreaming that they would grow up to live better lives. When authorities informed them about the extent of their son's crimes, his parents collapsed in despair, unable to fathom the horrific reality. Faced with the weight of his family's sorrow, Zheng Yangfu finally admitted to yet another murder. He revealed that he had also killed his former girlfriend, May. According to his statement, their relationship had been turbulent, with repeated arguments over financial security and marriage conditions. May had made it clear that she would not marry him unless he could buy a house. The deep wounds from his previous failed marriage, combined with May's insistence on financial stability, fueled his growing resentment. One night, in a moment of uncontrollable fury, he strangled her to death. He later dismembered her body and dumped the remains in a nearby river before meticulously covering his tracks. After multiple court hearings, on March 21, 2014, the Shantou Intermediate People's Court sentenced Zheng Yangfu to death for his crimes. His case left an indelible scar on society, not only for the brutality of his actions, but for his twisted justification, in which he saw himself as an agent of justice, punishing women he deemed unfaithful. The shocking nature of his crimes sent a powerful message about the dangers of deception, psychological instability, and unchecked violence. It was a stark reminder of how manipulation and distorted beliefs could lead to unimaginable consequences. What are your thoughts on this case? Share your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to support our content. See you in the next video.